Now that Gelgaron had become so powerful, the 10 warriors should have done what they were supposed to do in the beginning. Truly understand their powers and train. While the Master of Darkness was contemplating on how many numbers of beasts and people that he needed to build his army, the 10 warriors took their weapons, skills, and abilities and used them on the beasts and trained. That's what they should have done in the beginning. They kept telling themselves this. They wanted to become stronger, and doing this, they were. Inside of them, their energy was becoming stronger and stronger with each movement, with each use of their powers. Ultramus, he knew that the key and the sword had to be put together, but he knew he wasn't ready yet. But he knew he had a responsibility. He felt it in him that he had to be the one to plunge the sword into Gelgaron in order to defeat him. He did not know what would happen. He did not know if they would be truly free without him. If more darkness would keep coming after he was destroyed. But he didn't think like that. He knew what he had to do. So they kept training. They even tried their best to save as many of the people, as many of the villagers as possible. And then the day came when they knew, when they felt it, when they believed it, that they were strong enough. Ultramus put the key into the blade. He heard a loud locking sound as he turned it into it. The sword glowed and then dimmed. It seemed to look sharper, and it weighed less than it did before. He swung it with an ease. He knew all the movements and the way the sword moved with him. They were ready. All the people that they had saved, they brought to the temple. There were about 1,000 people in this village. About 600 were destroyed and killed. About 100 were brought to Gelgaron to make his army. 50 of them were destroyed by the 10 warriors. The rest of them he still had. And the other 300 were saved. Men, women, elderly, and the infants were still alive and kept in the temple for safety. Taking out as many of the beasts and soldiers as possible, the 10 warriors reached their way up to the castle of Gelgaron, the Master of Darkness. He could feel them. His power was getting stronger. He was so strong now he didn't even have to feel emotion anymore. He looked so calm, and his eyes, even though dark and twisted, they were gentle. As he walked out of his castle, newly dressed with armor, and his hair was now all red. The power surging within him, it had changed. Each single strand was blood red, and it was now his natural color. As he opened his mouth to speak, the clouds started to change. It seems you are now ready to face me. The warriors yelled out together, "Yes, we are." They began to walk closer. They had not reached the steps yet. Gelgaron looked left and then right, and a line cut into the ground, stopping them dead in their tracks. Then he slowly walked down the steps and then to the line and said calmly, "This is where it all ends. This is where you die." He punched the ground with his right hand, deep, pulling out his sword. He got into a stance. The warriors moved back slowly. He turned his head left and right. Ultramus could see a slash of energy cut through the air and move towards them. He lifted up his sword and cut the energy in half, the energy moving to his left and right and dissipated. He was the first to charge forward, using his sword, now with more skill. He blocked, parried, and even kicked back Gelgaron onto the stairs. Gelgaron once again did not become angry. He just struck harder. With each strike, it seemed like Ultramus could feel his anger and his power grow. Then Ultramus was struck hard across from his shoulder down to his hip, and then drop kicked backwards across the line and through everyone. As they fell, they somewhat caught him at the same time. Now it was everyone's turn. Gusts of winds from wings, black fire, axes, whips, ashen smoke, the ground shaking, energy balls flying from left and right, up and down and all over the place. It was a battle. Gelgaron sending soldiers and beasts and after them. He even lifted up his hand to the sky and struck it down, and red lightning hit the ground. It was truly a battle. Then, out of nowhere, he transformed. It seemed like the world might end on this day, as the 10 warriors were facing about 20 feet, a dragon with long outstretched wings. And now, instead of puffs of smoke, it was blazing fire. It scorched the ground. Any beast or warrior getting in his way would just be burnt to a crisp. Now, they had to stop the dragon. At first, it was hard, but it then slowly began to become easier as they were finding its weak spots. And then, finally, Ultramus lifted the sword high, without even realizing it. His body glowed, and then the sword. It seemed like the energy from his body was seeping into the sword, and he squeezed it tight within his hands and swung. An energy of force flowed through the sword and outward, hitting Gelgaron in his dragon form. Hit him so hard, it flung him back and over, and he began to roll. And as he rolled, he was slowly turning back into his human self. Getting on his knees and getting up, he moved his hair out of his face. Blood on his chest, face, hands, sweat. He was breathing heavily. The 10 warriors were walking towards him, weapons at the ready, energy out and glowing bright. They all struck at the same time. And it seemed that Gelgaron was getting weaker, and he was becoming defeated. But before that, just a bit before that, he clenched his body tight and released an energy. And so did they. It was the final strike. There was no more. There was nothing left, just a large crater and a sword with 10 strangely colored crystals embedded in it, and one ball dark orange colored ball was also embedded in it. And that is the last of the 10 warriors. Years, many years had passed, and the story of the 10 warriors had reached